Factors that affect population size. Carrying capacity. This is the maximum population that a particular environment can sustain. So if you look at the red line, you start out with very few individuals. Here it says number of individuals. So not so many, and then you increase because you have a lot of individuals born and not so many die. And here what you're seeing is stable population. So that's called the carrying capacity. It's different for every environment. Some environments are richer and can have a higher carrying capacity. What you see here are the number of births and immigration. So this is birth and immigration is going to equal the number of deaths and emigration, which means however many that leave. If you overshoot your carrying capacity, that means the organisms are reproducing so fast that they actually haven't, they're reproducing faster than they should for this environment, and what you see then is often a degradation of the environment. The population crashes, and then sometimes the carrying capacity is a lot lower. So that happens when maybe the organisms have overeaten an area, and then the soil runs off with the rain instead of being held in by vegetation. And then the soil just can't hold as much vegetation, and so the organisms, you just can't have as many anymore. So this would be the new carrying capacity.
I actually have a question. Would it actually shoot up that high for population?
Well, it depends.
Realistic.
It depends, but here's, if you look at this is reindeer population, I don't know, somewhere, and they measured this in 1910, 1920, all the way up to 1950, and that's actually a huge overshoot of carrying capacity. And yeah, so I would think not usually, but sometimes.
Alright.
If carrying capacity is exceeded, if it gets too big, the population may degrade the environment and decrease its carrying capacity. What directly determines population increases or decreases? So the birth rate, if you have a very high birth rate, you're going to be increasing the population. If you have a very low death rate, that will increase the population. If the death rate is high, then that will decrease the population. And then moving in or out, that's called migration. And immigration, if you put an I, immigration, that means who's moving in. And emigration with an E, that equals who's moving out or exiting. So you should know those two terms. Immigration is who's moving in, emigration is who's moving out. So if we want to look at what will increase the population, having a high birth rate will increase the population. How about death rate? Should that be high or low, David?
That would make it lower, and so would moving out.
Good. So if the death rate is lower, you can have an overall, let's put it the arrow here, overall increase in population. If you have high immigration and low emigration, then that would cause a high population. On the other hand, let's switch colors here. Whoops. Clearly don't know what I'm doing. Okay, on the other hand, if you want a low population, you'd have...
I think I don't know if you mean if you want, but if
right,
you have,
if that...
no one wants a low population.
Well...
Actually, if they're overpopulated.
Yeah. But let's say it this way. The better way to say it would be that the factors that will decrease population would be having a low birth rate.
A high death rate.
Excellent.
Or you could just have a really, really low birth rate.
Yeah, so any of these...
Not that bad a death
rate. Right. So any of these factors being extreme will definitely affect it. So immigration would have to be, or one of the factors that can decrease population would be a low immigration and a high immigration. Migration includes immigration, which means in, and emigration for out or for exit. These rates, birth, death, and migration, can be affected by lots of things. So one thing would be food or water. If you have a lot of food and a lot of water, then the moms will be able to support the babies and they'll be born, and you'll have lots of adult organisms around to make babies. If there's very little food or water, then they'll die or they'll emigrate, they'll leave.
Or they just won't have kids in the first place.
Right, depending on how much, if there's not enough food to carry a baby, that would be one thing that would be affecting the birth
Or if
rate.
they're just so depressed because there's not enough food, that also affects it.
Or if they, if mom doesn't have enough fat in her body to carry the baby all winter, for example, then that would affect birth rate. Or if there's so little food that they actually starve to death, then that would certainly affect both the birth rate and the death rate.
Yeah.
Competition for resources. So if your organisms are competing with each other, if there's a lot of them around,
or like if there's mooses versus deer.
Right, exactly. So if there's two different populations of species interacting. Available space. So how crowded are the organisms? Parasitism and disease. A parasite is...
Wait, for available space, do you mean available space versus food? Because if there's a lot of space but no food...
Well, if you only have a little space, then the waste will build up. There'll be more fighting, more competition.
Okay.
Yeah, even mice raised in like a small area, kind of, if they're overcrowded, they get a little kind of crazy. Parasitism means some organism that's living in or on you, sapping your nutrients.
Oh, like,
yeah.
Oh, I can't remember the name. I saw a documentary on it.
Pinworms, tapeworms,
It was the kind of worm that was like inside of the cow's heart.
Heartworm. Yeah, that's pretty nasty. Disease would be another, so maybe various bacteria. Predation, what does that mean?
I think that seeing how it starts the same as predators, I think it might be like predators eating stuff.
That's exactly it. Waste accumulation.
Oh, so, like you mentioned with available space.
Right, so if you have a bunch of bacteria in a petri dish, they'll grow and grow and grow until there's either no more food or until they have so much waste that it's toxic.
It kills them?
Yeah, that it kills them. Stress and overcrowding. So if you have, again, that's sort of back to the available space thing. If you have too many, they get stressed. And then the weather. So these are things that are independent of population density. All the other things are really dependent, in some way at least, on population density. Weather, like if you have a huge monsoon or something that wipes a bunch of, I don't know, birds out and, kills them, that has nothing to do...
Then there's going to be a lot more available space then.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with, like...
Oh, yeah, it would has nothing to do with...
It would kill all 5 of them or all 50 of them. Whoever's there would die. It's not anything to do with how many are there. Here's just a well-studied example of the hare and the lynx. So the lynx eats the hare, and so you can see the hare is the blue one. So when their population goes up, it takes a little time, but then the lynx population goes up after, and then the hare population drops, and the lynx does too. So they kind of are they're kind of related, and some scientists...
So when they overeat, then they all die. Wait, is that I can't see my pointing, but that kind of looks like a 0 in the area.
Yeah, it might be. They might have emigrated.
Actually.
Yeah, they might have. Or maybe when they went out to measure them, they couldn't find any because there were so few.
Oh, yeah, actually.
So
that's probably it, actually.
These may be linked in terms of predator and prey. So when you have the hare population drop, it takes a little bit of time, but the lynx population drops because they get very hungry and either die or have to migrate out. So predator populations decrease just after prey populations decrease, which happens sometimes. Here's human population growth. So this is the estimated population in 12,000, blah, 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 blah.
Wait,
agricultural revolution.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you have the old Stone Age, the new Stone Age.
Right. But it doesn't really increase that much back.
It doesn't increase much.
Well,
here's the Iron Age.
Really that many.
The Middle Ages, and this drop is the bubonic plague, so the Black Death.
Oh, wow, that is pretty.
That's a huge drop. It's a huge drop. And then even more impressive is this.
Oh, it's there anyway.
Yeah, that's me. Even more impressive is this absolutely enormous rise. So you're looking at 6 billion people here. And
now
that's
7.
Really, now 7 actually, and that's just increasing exponentially at this point.
Wait, actually, I have a kind of question. Was Woe pointing at the plague or at the
Woe is pointing at this increase.
Okay, I kind of thought it might have been pointing at the plague because that's kind of a lot.
It's a huge drop, actually.
It's a huge drop. Even though we do have like a lot more people than that now, but still, I mean, like for the population that's there.
Yeah, no, sure, cut it in half. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's scary.
All right, that is our story.